Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. We've got good news, and bad news for Russia. Today was a good day. Ukrainian naval drones destroy a Russian missile boat with 40 sailors on board. Russian sources reported that 4 Ukrainian sea drones were destroyed overnight off the coast of Crimea, but neglected to mention any damage to any of their ships. This is the Russians saying we successfully destroyed 4 Ukrainian naval drones by allowing them to slam into our own ship. This is what the Russian corvette looked like before, and it's now on the bottom of the Black Sea. A complete loss. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense did release the video. It's 2 minutes. This is nighttime video. I'll link it down below if you want to see it for yourself. But yes, we now know. If you put enough holes in any ship, that ship eventually will sink. So for those of you playing Black Sea Fleet bingo at home, you can cross another ship off your board. Let me know when you hit bingo. More good news. Ukrainian bombers launch waves of French and British cruise missiles. Russian airbase in Crimea pounded. Details are still coming out, but Thursday may have been the most ambitious and complex Ukrainian airstrike of the war so far. Both sides say that Kyiv's planes, their pilots, returned to the base safely. So Crimea is exposed. For the last year, Ukraine has been aggressively going after their S-300 and S-400 air defense systems, as well as their radar installations. And Russia can't protect their military assets on the Crimean Peninsula anymore. They've got holes like Swiss cheese, and Ukraine is getting these long-range missiles on some pretty important targets. We don't really have good pictures and videos. I can link a couple down below. The Belbek airfield, this is north of Sevastopol, was successfully struck. All we really have are telegram posts translated of Russians talking about their losses. This is what the Russians are saying. At the Belbek airfield, according to verified information, 3 planes, 2 Su-27s and 1 Su-30 were lost. 2 of them are seriously damaged, but there's still a chance to repair them. 1 plane is completely destroyed. The missile hit it directly. Also, 12 soldiers died at the airfield, another 10 wounded. I do think in the next day or so we'll get more pictures and videos, exactly how bad the damage is. At the very least, we'll get some satellite images pretty soon. Drone crashes into St. Petersburg oil refinery. Again, this is the new story. Probably every update video I do for the rest of this year, we're going to have these reports of Ukrainian drones slamming into oil depots and refineries on the Baltic and Black Seas. There are some videos I'll link down below if you want to see it. This attack was at the Nevsky Mazut plant in the heart of St. Petersburg. And this is never going to stop. This is Ukraine's primary objective for the entire year. There's about 6 or 7 of these oil depots and refineries on the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea. And it's going to take weeks. It's going to take the rest of the year. But eventually, all these oil depots and refineries will go offline due to Ukrainian drone strikes. Now, the Russians can still get their oil and energy exports out through the Asian continent and the Arctic Ocean. But Russia's days of exporting, loading up tankers in the Baltic and Black Sea are officially over. As long as they continue this war, they're not going to be able to make a profit exporting out through the European continent. We haven't had a sighting of GLSDB yet. We do know for a fact now that the Ukrainians have them. They're probably taking off the shrink wrap and driving them to the front. But this weekend, I think this is the weekend, we're going to start seeing pictures and videos of what this can do. The hope is that Boeing and Saab, over the next year, will be delivering thousands of these bombs. If it's just a couple dozen, this was a bust, but I'm hoping, based on the per unit cost and the kind of money that was being allocated by the United States a year ago, that we're going to spend a couple $100 million manufacturing these bombs, and they're going to rain down on Russian positions within 150 kilometers. So this green territory is everything that GLSDB can target. It's only a small amount of the Crimean Peninsula that is still safe, but if the Ukrainians can push the Russians out of Kherson and Zaporizhia at some point this year, then none of Crimea will be safe. This might be the best news so far. The EU's 27 states reach a deal on a €50 billion aid package to Ukraine. As doubts swirl over future support from Ukraine's other major ally, the United States, the EU deal is a major boost for Kyiv, as Russia's war nears the start of its third year. This aid package needed to pass for Ukraine to stay in the game, and it did. The estimates given 2 years ago is that Ukraine's government needs about $5 billion in financial aid every single month in order to keep the lights on. So this €50 billion package will get Ukraine through the rest of 2024. On top of this, individual EU countries are also donating additional aid, both financial and military. So Ukraine is now looking good for the rest of 2024, politics aside, here in the United States. And the rumor is that Viktor Orban of Hungary got nothing. According to multiple sources, Orban not only had to give up his pro-Putin stance, but also received no concessions in return. The Hungarian leadership hasn't issued a comment on the passage of this package. So Orban wanted to kill it. The EU said, we're going to strip you of your voting rights if you do that. He wanted to reduce it. He wanted to delay it. There was this talk of mandatory debate and amendments on the package every year. And kudos, the EU stood strong, and they told this toad no. You get nothing. Either you can get with the program, or we'll strip you of your voting rights. You're free to leave the EU and NATO if you really want to. And this is a welcome change of tone from Central Europeans. The Scandinavian countries and the Baltics have been fantastic, but we need Central Europe to wake up. According to Macron, EU must support Ukraine even if the United States withdraws its aid. And I do want to say that Joe Biden and the Democrats are still finding ways to support Ukraine, even with Donald Trump and Republicans blocking additional military aid. Here's an interesting story. Joe Biden is arming Greece, so Greece can arm Ukraine, and pro-Russian Republicans can't stop him. Excess defense articles is a powerful authority. As the Republican Party's blockade of aid to Ukraine drags into its 4th month, funding officially ran out on October 1st, and House Republicans have been blocking a simple up or down vote for 4 months now. The US government under Joe Biden has found a clever new way to give Ukraine's forces the weapons and ammunition they need to defend their country. It is, in essence, an American version of Germany's circular weapons trade, the so-called Ringtausch. The United States is gifting older surplus weapons to Greece, with the understanding that Greece will then donate their surplus weapons to Ukraine. All of this hardware is US military surplus, and is available to Greece, as a NATO member, free of charge, under a US legal authority called Excess Defense Articles. Federal law allows an American president to declare military systems surplus to need, assign them a value, and Joe Biden can assign the value of all this equipment at $0, and then give them away on the condition that the recipient transports them. So Greece just has to come to the United States and pick this stuff up, take it back to their country, and then the quid pro quo deal is that Greece will give their old Soviet-made equipment to Ukraine. This is in motion. Joe Biden and the Democrats are trying to make this happen. On top of this, the United States military can still do a lot to support Ukraine, providing intelligence and reconnaissance. Obviously, nuclear deterrence is still in play if Russia ever chooses to use nukes in Ukraine. But we've got to get over this hurdle. This hurdle that is Donald Trump and Speaker Mike Johnson. And I've been checking this guy's Twitter page every day to see what he's saying and doing. And this guy's a troglodyte. He's a pathological liar. Speaker Johnson seriously creeps me out. And the reason why is he keeps taking these meetings with Europeans. This was yesterday. He met with NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg. And Speaker Johnson, to their faces, will say, I support you, I like you, I'm on your side. Let's share some tea and coffee and talk about what we have in common. When Speaker Johnson has no intention of ever helping Europe or stopping the Russians. Here's a post from 2 days ago, and I'm going to read this for you. Today I met with the speakers of the Baltic states to discuss our ongoing challenges that face our countries. We discussed the importance of deterring threats like China, Russia, and Iran, and we noted the importance of viable blah blah blah. It'd be one thing if Speaker Johnson was just honest and said, I'm never going to schedule a vote for military aid to Ukraine. I don't care if Ukraine falls or Russia wins. That would be honest and respectable. Like Viktor Orban has more integrity than Speaker Mike Johnson. Speaker Mike Johnson will shake your hand. He will take this meeting. He will break bread with you and then stab you in the back. This guy doesn't care what happens to the Baltics. If Ukraine falls and Russia invades Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania next, these politicians will be imprisoned. They'll be tortured to death. Their children will be stolen and relocated to random families in Siberia. And Speaker Johnson has no problem with any of this. He could schedule a vote today on military aid to our democratic allies around the world, but because Donald Trump wants him to block this vote, he is going to continue blocking this vote for the rest of 2024. Code Red, How Russia Conquers the Baltics. Friend of the channel, Anders Puck Nielsen, made another fantastic video. He's a Danish naval officer. And if NATO and Russia were to go to war, Russia can't defeat NATO. The goal of the Russians is to get NATO not to invoke Article 5, to not come to the defense of any territory that Russia chooses to attack. So this would be the Baltics, maybe a part of Poland, maybe a part of Finland. The goal is to test NATO and have NATO back down. Have NATO say, Estonia is not worth a nuclear war with Russia. So we know who's behind all of this. Donald Trump on the campaign trail is openly saying, if elected president, he wants to pull out of NATO. If Russia attacks a NATO country, he's not going to come to the Europeans' defense. For the next 8 or 9 months, my primary purpose in life is making sure that Donald Trump is not elected president again. If Donald Trump becomes president and Putin believes he can attack a NATO country, this does risk World War III. This does risk nuclear war. Ukraine has to hold, Russia has to be defeated, and for those Donald Trump supporters out there, I'm sorry, Donald Trump is now part of the equation, and he must be defeated. Let's check in with Putin's presidential campaign. This is entertaining. Putin contends his forces now hold the outskirts of Avdiivka. As elections approach, Russian president tries to show that massive losses there are not in vain. And this is what passes for a campaign event in Russia. Let me read for you what Putin says. One of the most important directions where combat actions are currently taking place is Avdiivka. This group of veterans went ahead of our troops, ahead of regular troops, broke through any enemy defenses, and reached the outskirts of Avdiivka, captured 19 houses, and is holding them successfully. He then pauses for the audience to clap about 19 houses being captured. The guys there are fighting properly. They are fighting properly. Such people, of course, should be involved in educating the younger generations. Russia's winter offensive began on October 10th. This was 4 months ago. And for 4 months, they've been directly suiciding into the city of Avdiivka. Putin desperately wanted his military to capture this town prior to his election announcement in December. Didn't happen. So then he told his generals, you got to get the job done by March when I actually stand for re-election. The Russian military is corrupt, they're incompetent, despite taking tens of thousands of casualties and losing hundreds of armored vehicles. This is the progress. 19 houses, all completely destroyed, in the city of Avdiivka. And that is what Putin is bragging to his people about to justify his special military operation. This magenta is where the Russians started 2 years ago. And this red is how far they've gotten in 2 years. Let's go ahead and measure this. And it's 3 kilometers. It's like 2 miles. And Avdiivka's pre-war population was only 32,000. Just think of a small town in your home country. After 2 years of fighting and hundreds of thousands of casualties, you're bankrupting your country to be campaigning for re-election and bragging that you captured 19 houses in a town of 30 pre-war pop. Russia, you're a nuclear superpower. You're embarrassing yourself. Let's check in on Putin's opposition. Pro-peace presidential hopeful Netizen submits signatures to register as a candidate. So he's officially on the ballot. And people are excited about this guy because he says he opposes Putin and he's pro-peace. He wants to end the war. This is not something you're normally allowed to say, so people are scratching their heads. And Solovyev on Kremlin State TV has some interesting thoughts on his friend Boris running for president. So let me read you this clip from Russian Media Monitor. What happened to Boris Nemtsov, who will today finally submit the election signatures? In a human sense, for me, this is a big disappointment. I've known Borya for about 25 years. He is my age, very mature, a man with a big family. It's clear that there are 0 chances. Why is he doing this? Pardon me, this is strictly my personal opinion. You'll be thrown into prison, and that'll be the end of it. The government will raise your poor children. Are you an idiot? What actions of protest, you fool? A war is underway. Boris Nemtsov's role should be examined. Can he be charged with treason against the motherland? Borya is being turned into a sacrificial victim, into a scapegoat. They aren't trying to whack him. They are trying to get him imprisoned. He is being handed to the government on a silver platter. They'll say, oh look, this man is carrying out the orders of the Ukrainian intelligence services. Now Borya, this is a no-win situation. What is he supposed to do right now? Keep persisting and then rot in prison camps? This is truly a tragedy. So normally in a democracy, when there's a presidential election, the media covers the election and represents the positions of the two sides running for office. And here we have Solovyev, the #1 show on Kremlin State TV, just saying, why is anyone challenging our dictator? They're going to be poisoned or killed. Russia's a crazy place. And I still think Boris is a Kremlin plant. The Kremlin wanted him to run, to have a pro-peace candidate that token opposition could vote for. But when you actually start watching some clips from Boris, he kind of exposes himself. So watch this clip.
Тут, знаете, вот, что русские хорошо умеют делать, так это воевать. Вот это вот у нас хорошо получается. Проблема в том, что с той стороны такие же русские. Вот в чем проблема, да? И тут можно
русские? Они украинцы.
Ну, они называются украинцы, но по характеру, по готовности отдать жизнь там за родину, они Такие.
So why isn't Russia winning this war? And it's because the mighty Russians are fighting mighty Russians. Sure, they call themselves Ukrainians, but they're really Russian, which is why Russia is struggling so much. Their opponent is their own mirror image. If he actually believes this guy's an idiot, but let's move on. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. Germany steps up yet again with another military aid package. It feels like one of these is coming out every single week, so thank you so much to the amazing people of Germany. Switzerland is going to ban the import of Russian diamonds. Switzerland's not part of the EU. They don't have to do this, but they're choosing to. Thank you so much, Switzerland. Latvia is going to ban grain imports from Belarus and Russia. I'm kind of surprised they haven't already done this, but yes, nothing should be coming in from Belarus. In order for Belarus to get their grain exports out to the world, they've got to go through a NATO country. And we're 2 years into this war. Belarus is an accomplice of Russia. No mercy, in my opinion. Shut down the borders. Don't allow them to cross through your territory to get their grain exports out. Screw Belarus. This is joyous news. Ukraine returns 207 prisoners of war from captivity. Despite the failed prisoner exchange that was supposed to happen last week, Ukraine today returned 207 soldiers and civilians from Russian captivity. Let me just play this clip for you in its entirety. Russia will be defeated. Ukraine will win this war. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.